Chapter 950. Linda brought Alex to the dormitory area of the orphanage. Alex could see the dormitory that he used to live in at a single glance. After looking out the window, Alex saw a dozen or more children who were about 1 to 2 years old playing under the leadership of one of the aunts in the orphanage. He could not help but ask, "Linda, why are there so many young children at the orphanage now?" Linda replied, "There are many irresponsible parents who sent their children directly to the entrance of the orphanage after giving birth to them. Some of these children were abandoned because of congenital disabilities or diseases. Some of them have the same fate as me, and they are abandoned because they are girls." Linda could not help but sigh when she spoke of this. After that, she said angrily, "There are also many children who have been abducted by human traffickers but were subsequently rescued by the police. Some of the children are too young, and it is impossible for the police to find out who their parents are. Therefore, they can only be placed under our foster care in the orphanage for the time being. After finding out the identity of their parents, they will be sent back to their families." When Alex saw that some of these children had some sort of physical disabilities, he could not help but ask, "Linda, why are there so many disabled children here? Is it congenital disabilities?" "No," Linda replied indignantly, "these are all children that the police rescued from the human traffickers. They were all originally healthy children. However, after being abducted and taken away by these human traffickers, they did not sell these children. Instead, they turned them into disabled children so that they could put them out of the streets to beg. They destroyed the lives of these children in an instant and turned them into their cash cows." When Emma heard this, she said angrily, "Those people are jerks. How could they turn these healthy children into disabled people?" Linda replied, "There are these kinds of bad guys who have no conscience and specialize in doing these kinds of things. They are all normal and healthy people who have their own hands and feet. However, they pretend to be disabled and go around begging to make a living. Later, they eventually find out that it is really easy for them to make money by begging on the streets. Therefore, in order to make more money faster, they deliberately look for disabled people to beg on the streets to increase their credibility. When they could not find any more disabled people, they decided to buy some children and turn them into a disabled person so that it would be easier for them to beg on the streets." Emma was shaking with anger as she blurted out, "Assholes like that should be shot to death." Alex sighed as he said, "Actually, I have already heard of the existence of the beggar syndicate when I was still working at the construction site. They mostly consist of fellow villagers or relatives who formed and organized a group to beg in big cities. Some of them are extremely cruel, and they specialize in targeting minors." After that, Alex continued speaking, "Do you remember that we watched an Indian movie called Slumdog Millionaire about 2 years ago? There was the leader of a beggar syndicate who made a young child blind because he could sing very well. After making him blind, he made him sing and beg on the street. It seems as though this kind of thing only happens far away from us, but in actual fact, it is often happening around us." Emma said angrily, "I really did not expect such demons to be around us. If I knew about this, I would have studied in the police academy to become a police officer so that I can bring these bad guys to justice instead." Linda sighed as she said, "Sister-in-law, the main point is that there is just too much profit margins in this syndicate. Therefore, many people would be willing to take the risk of getting shot as long as they are able to make that much money." Linda felt that the conversation was getting a little too heavy. So, she hurriedly said, "Oh, it is already getting late. Why don't we head to the restaurant first? Some of our friends might have already arrived." Alex nodded slightly and said, "Yes, let's go to the restaurant first." The three of them left the orphanage together. At this time, Alex suddenly asked Linda, "By the way, Linda, is the orphanage facing any difficulties lately?" Linda smiled as she said, "We have always been facing all sorts of difficulties. However, we can still pull through. The children's living conditions are much better compared to what we had when we were young. The only downside is the fact that the classrooms, dormitories, and cafeteria are really too old. The dean has always been applying for funding because he was hoping that we would be able to raise some money for some renovation. However, the superiors have always said that the finances are too tight and that there would not be any funds available for the time being. Alex nodded lightly as he took every word that she had just said to heart.